All right, back once again. We're looking at a game from round four, the Norway chess tournament that's going on right now. And this game is between Anish Giri with the white pieces and Viswanathan Anand with the black pieces. Giri started off with c4, English opening, e5, classical response from Anand, knight c3, and bishop b4. This line isn't as common. Usually you'll see knight f6 first, but there's many different responses. And one of the ideas behind this, or the main idea behind this, is just the control over the e4 square, and of course fighting for d5 square. But e4 is really the main uh, idea here for black. Black wants to push the e4 square, push this pawn to the e4 square. So he wants to eliminate this knight early with the bishop, and this is like idea related to the Nimzo Indian defense. Another thing is also is that oftentimes in this opening, this bishop gets locked behind. Whoops, excuse me. This bishop will get locked behind uh, back here on e7 if these pawns, or say on d6, c6, so to speak, and the bishop won't really be a big factor in the game. So black's idea is to bring the bishop out early, uh, outside of the pawn chain, eliminate this knight if he can, and then push e4 eventually. After knight f6, and sometimes black will play c6, d6, then e4, and eventually try to get into d5. This happened in the game between Hikaru Nakamura and who had the white pieces, and Viswanathan Anand with the black pieces. Anand has played this position several times in St. Louis, in some rapid games, blitz games against Topalov, Nakamura, among others, and with decent results. So he definitely knows his way about in this variation. Let me just show you real quick his game against Nakamura. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but just a few of the moves. So the Nakamura game went in a similar pattern to this game. Here, Anand played bishop b4. Again, our idea is this quick capture of this knight, and to control this e4 square. Now, there's different moves that can be played here. One is knight d5, knight c3, knight f3, queen c2, g3. All of them have been tried, but they all basically score for white at a low percentage, in the 40s. Because the only move that really seeks to confront black's idea is the move knight d5, right? Not allowing this quick capture on c3. And this is what Nakamura had played against Anand, and this is also what Giri played today in this game. But let me just give you a quick example. For instance, if knight f3, right, attacking the pawn here, and a completely natural move, then simply bishop takes c3, and after d takes c3, just simple chess, knight c4, knight c6, and e4, for example, d6. Notice after the elimination of the dark square bishop, just place the pawns on dark squares. Bishop d3, knight g7, and let's say, just for example, castle, Position's completely equal, and black has nothing to worry about. He can look forward to playing moves like b6, bishop b7, or even bishop g4, placing the pin there. So knight d5 is basically one of the main, like if you're gonna try to refute this idea, this knight d5 is the move. So in the Nakamura game, Nakamura had played knight d5 here, bishop c5, and Naka played knight f3, and Nan quickly kicked the knight out with c6, knight c3, and remember this pawn is under attack. So d6, e3, and we see this idea here. So Anand just simply kind of reinstated his plan, so to speak. After d4 by Nakamura, he simply played e4. Notice that this knight on c3 is pinned. So he played knight e2. Now you have this double attack here. Therefore, bishop takes, and this is what black wants to do anyway. B takes, and now knight f6. Bishop a3 from Nakamura, castle. Naka played c5, and then d5. And the Anand actually went on to win from this position. As you can see, he has a nice space advantage on the king side. Okay, the position is still double-edged, but he achieved a nice position. But I just wanted to show you, example of what black is trying to do with that early bishop b4 here. Sorry about the dog. I had to get rid of that. It was distracting me. All right. So where were we? Okay. So bishop c5 here. And okay, so we went over we were at the Nakamura game, and like I told you, Anand had went on to win. So now back to the Giri game. So just to give you an idea, of basically that move bishop b4. Like it's nothing special about it, but it's a simple idea of basically trying to get rid of this knight real quick. So if you're kind of not, a nuance to the idea, like you play a natural looking move like knight f3, black can equalize, easily. So the main line against this is knight d5, and this is what Giri played. So bishop c5, of course. Now e3 with this idea of just basically making the bishop pay for, declaring its intentions so early on in the game. Knight f6, b4, and the idea with this is to, again, it's trying to make black pay for bringing the bishop out so early, right? Declaring, like putting your cards out on the table that early, and so this is the best way that white can come up with to make black pay for the intention. So now, right, not only must the bishop return to, say, like a more passive area, right? This is white's idea that, hey, now what? You can't go back here because white will just play c5, trapping the bishop. So that means bishop e7. Okay, so this is kind of like the main test for this variation. Another idea, of course, behind bishop b4 is just bring this bishop here with the more attack on the e pawn. So gaining tempi to develop and space. So that's what white's argument is in this position. Okay, black has brought his bishop out early without the position really being, too clear as to whether the bishop actually belongs on b4 or not. And this is white's way of trying to make him pay for it. All right. So he's trying to take that active position away from black here. So knight takes d5, which is a main line. Bishop e7 can be played, but it's kind of like I'm not gonna say refutes black's idea, but it makes black's idea look silly of playing this bishop b4 at the beginning. So knight takes d5, b takes c5, right? So he loses the bishop here, but black's getting what he wants, right? So in a roundabout way, the knight has been eliminated from c3, okay? But he has some extra influence over e4 and of course indirectly d5 as a result of the knight being eliminated from c3. So that's what it's about, that early bishop move there. I see some pressure there from Giri. And now d6. C takes d6. E takes d6. So now it's a good time to just look at the position and assess some of these static features. Let's look at this. I always like to mention the two bishops. People underestimate the two bishops. Very, very nice advantage to have in the game. Because even if the position is relatively closed, as the position opens up, the bishops become more and more powerful. All right. So yeah, right now the bishops aren't, ringing bells, but as the time goes on, the position opens up, they become more and more dangerous. Just having that luxury of being able to attack right from a long distance, to be able to touch without being touched. That's the great, you know, aspect of the long range pieces. And you could throw the rooks in there also, along with the queen. So that's an advantage we can put in white's favor. The two bishops. Another feature here is, notice this backward pawn here. And white does not really have control over d5. Black is able to push, but here's the problem, is that right now, let's get rid of some graphics, is that right now white indirectly prevents the push to d5 because of the pressure that he has here on the e5 square. So he has to prepare that more, perhaps with moves like rook e8, and then try to get d5 in later. If black can get in this d5 push, then he has no troubles equalizing here in this position. Castle, there it is, rook e8, and now a4. Of course, d4 also an option, but Giri chooses this move, a4. Alright, so a4, and this move is one of those, like, I don't want to call it a deep positional move, but to explain it, we see this b file is open. Eventually this rook, or can, I'm not going to say will come, but eventually this rook will come to the b, can come to the b file, attacking on this file, and this b pawn is going to need to be protected. And oftentimes this pawn will serve as a battering ram on the queen side in order to be able to expose the weakness on this file. And so a4 is often played early on, and then later on, say after these pieces move, like this knight for instance, this bishop, the bishop is over here, and this pawn is exposed, then what happens is, at the right time, a move like a4 come and wreck the position here. This is why Anand immediately he plays this move b6, right? It stops. It just freezes this situation right here, and then he's gonna go on. So he kind of it's kind of prophylactic move where he takes care of potential weakness. He knows he's getting ready to develop this bishop, so he kind of just puts this pawn here. It stops any further advance of this pawn. Of course, the knight was already there. Okay, but he stops any further advance in the future, and now he can feel free to move his bishop wherever he wants to. D3 is played. Giri keeps the diagonal open. All right, he could have played D4, but you know, this is his plan. He wants his position to be open for his bishops. So there it is, bishop G4. So notice now that the bishop is left the nest. The B pawn is secure. Here, it would have needed some protection at some point. So, like I said, prophylaxis. He is taking care of that before it could become an issue. H3, bishop H5, G4. So now we see Giri weakens his king side somewhat. All right, but he does it so that he may obtain the other bishop and thus be the only player with the bishops. So knight H4, rook C8, knight takes G6. And now, even though, again, in the static sense, this would be considered a weakness, if black cannot exploit it in any way, then it can't really be considered a weakness. All right. Black has no attack on the king side brewing and no way really to break these pawns down. So we see here, Giri just left with the two bishops and a beautiful diagonal to place the light square bishop on unopposed. There it is, bishop F3. And now Anand plays G5. Again, more prophylaxis just to keep these pawns from rolling up the king side. So he decides to play G5 to fix these pawns right on light squares. Giri just drops back, bishop G2, and now knight D7. F4. And again, as I said earlier, as the game progresses and begins to open up more and more, the bishops become stronger and stronger in the position. So G takes F4, E takes F4, knight C5. F takes E5, D takes E5. So we see that even though Anand, right, has gotten rid of his weakness, which we discussed earlier, which was that backward pawn on the D file, right? And, you know, he has a nice pawn structure, and, you know, his pieces, you know, pretty much well placed to liberate his position. The fact that white has these two powerful bishops, right, give him the advantage in the position. It's very difficult for black to deal with this, and this is even with the this weak pawn here, right? It's very difficult for black to deal with the challenges here, because watch this next move. So we see this attack here, but now after bishop D5, the pawn is blocked. But not only is the pawn blocked, because this move in itself is not a big deal, because if the move like knight E7, then you would just remove the bishop. However, this move comes with tempo because F7 is attacked 2 times and must be defended. And we can see now the bishops being felt here. So the rook goes back home, and queen F3. Now this is like amateur chess, right? Build up on F7. You got 3 pieces. Surely Anand can defend this, right? Queen d7. Okay, so now he adds one more piece to the defense. And now Anand, excuse me, Giri plays the move bishop c3 in this position. Okay, so here Gary is on point because you might say, why bishop c3? Well, he guards this square so the knight can't come here and eliminate this strong bishop. Another way he could have attempted to do that is queen e3 by putting extra pressure on here. Again, it does the same thing because there's all this pressure here on this pawn. But I like bishop c3 better because the queen is able to stay on the f file, maintaining the pressure here. And so the bishop contributes by doing this job. So knight e6, blocking the action of the d5 bishop here. Rook a e1. Real simple chess, double attack on the e5 pawn. Knight e7. So after rook a e1, put in this double pressure here, the moment of truth comes. And here, black plays knight e7. Having satisfied the requirements of protecting the f7 pawn, now he decides it's time to trade off this guy. But notice Anand has decided to give up this pawn. And this shows you the power of the two bishops, over the knights in this kind of open position. And Anand was practically forced to give up material in order to alleviate himself of the pressure in the position. So rook takes e5, knight takes d5. So notice now white gives up the advantage of the two bishops, but now it's in exchange for another advantage, which is material. So now he's up a solid pawn for the two bishops. And this, my friends, is how advantages should work in chess, right? If you gain an advantage, you should never just lose the advantage, right? Any advantage. It could be a passed pawn. It could be a strong square, an outpost. It could be rook on the 7th rank. All these are small advantages. But once you gain any kind of an advantage, you should never just lose it for nothing, right? You should be either exchange it for another kind of advantage. So maybe you have a strong outpost, but now you give up that outpost so that you can create a pass pawn. You see one advantage to the next. Or you, for instance, Giri here has the two bishops, and here he put so much pressure on the position that he gained a whole pawn, right, just for the light square bishop on d5 to be removed. So remember those type of things. So knight takes d5, rook takes d5. Queen takes a4. So Anand gets his pawn back, and of course this is what he was envisioning. So now you had this one bishop versus this one knight. Problems in this position though are the activity of white's pieces and the dominance in the center. This bishop dominates these dark squares. You had the pawn here dominating rook here. Then you have all this pressure here on f7. Alright. Gary plays g5, and the idea is real simple. Is play g6. So rook c5. Gary's trying, Anand is trying to relieve himself of some pressure, and he plays rook c5. So rook takes d5, c takes d5, knight c5, and real simple chess happens. G6, of course he can't take. Queen d7, and after bishop to b4, Anand had to resign. Okay, there's just way too much pressure. F7, and then you got this pin here. So this was a nice, solid, smooth win for Giri. Anand fell under intense pressure, and I think it was a good piece of preparation by Giri here. I think he knew, um, kind of what Anand's preferences would be here in this English, and because if you look on the database, you can see for yourself that Anand, played quite a few games with this early bishop b4, and it seems like Gary was just, just simply, just ready to, deal with it. So, of course, that would be meant by rook takes e5. All right, well, hope you enjoyed that analysis into that variation. Please like and subscribe. I want to look at one more game, decisive game from the round today. So I'll see you right there.